Hi, everybody, and welcome back to a new episode of Through the King, our podcast where we analyze the life and the personality of famous people from the point of view of the Tzolkin. My name is Karen, and I'm here with my partner Carol. Hi, Carol, how are you today?
Hi, Karen. Yeah, I'm good. But I will say it has felt like a real bang, sort of coming down to earth with a bang this week compared
Yeah,
to the energies of last week and also the person that we covered last week, Maradona. Um, it's been a real, yeah, coming down to earth with a bang. But that is totally ties in with the energies of the wave spell and the person that we're going to talk about today who was voted
yeah,
by.
of course. We can say that it really feels that the change that we have to one castle to other because we end up the blue castle with the seed wave spell and we enter to the yellow castle with the air wave spell that we start a few days ago. And like you said, well, the person that we are going to check through this through his king is someone that people voted last week on different social media, here on YouTube and also on Instagram. But before we start, we are going to show you on the screen the next characters for you to choose your favorite. So we will analyze the most voted on the sixth episode of our podcast. And in this opportunity, the ones that you are watching on the screen are people that were born on the night wave spell because the one on the dog wave spell it will be a surprise. We have already chosen, so don't miss any episode. And please let us know in the comments or the votation on Instagram, which is the one that you will like to see on this podcast. And the most voted will be on the episode 6. So let's start with our character of the Earth Wave spell. And let me say that this wasn't one of my favorites, but I really enjoy analyze him because, like always, we find a lot of synchronicities between his life, his personality, and the energies that the Sulking show us that he works on his life. So, would you like to reveal who is it, Carol?
Okay, this earth wave spell, is our character is Steve Jobs, famous for his inventions of personal computing and Apple, the Apple company, whose birthday was the 24th of February 1955, and he was the white rhythmic wind.
Well, I'm surprised that it's a rhythmic win because, well, like you said, he was famous for uh, work with technology and invent a lot of uh, objects that today it's uh, something that we use all the time. So if we talk about the win, we are talking about communication and different ways to talk and express, and of course, uh, of the spirituality because it's one of the glyphs that represent this the spiritual side of life.
It's also, I thought was quite interesting with his uh, character that he was also quite a fickle person as far as his employees would have related about him, and could be quite obnoxious, I think, verbally, the things that he could say. He wasn't your perfect hero by any means, but there's also so his strengths, but also his weaknesses are very much come from the wind sort of direction, from that part of his kin.
Yeah.
I also really think that combination when with jobs when the wet earth element is so strong with him as well. So the combination of the two is I find it kind of hard to separate them at all because um, he was so also well known for his different rules, like his 10-minute rule, which was that if you can't work out the answer to a problem within 10 minutes, you should go for a walk. And something that he often did without shoes on. So he was very much a barefoot walker sort of kind of guy. And so we have the grounding there, which is really a great way to get information from the earth, and at the same time he particularly for somebody, I suppose, with the wind wave spell, but also others, this channeling to receive information as well, mental information as well. So very, very
Yeah,
strong earth element there. Yeah.
yeah, it's pretty amazing because Earth always talks about the evolution and the synchronicity. And if we talk about a wind, we can see that in his oracle, it's his analog energy. So it's something, disconnection with Earth and with his own time. I mean, the real time, not the uh, artificial that we use on the clocks or the calendar, the Gregorian calendar. This connection it helps to know which are the next steps that you need to take. So I think he was really connected with this, and also listen to himself, uh, which was the real sense of everything. And
Had the
it's really,
intuition, you mean?
yeah, yeah, of
Yeah.
course. And it's really interesting that his job, it was focused on get a better experience with the communications, because all the technology that he developed, uh, it was focused on that, on have a great experience using computers, using your phone.
I think it's important as well to draw attention to the fact that he was initially, um, it was a team with him and Steve Wozniak who created Apple. And so Steve was the real hands-on inventor. Um, and oh, did I say Steve was the, well, yeah, Stephen Wozniak was the hands-on inventor, and Steve Jobs was the communicator and the salesman, and also the charismatic person who was very good with getting things done through sort of like his words, really. Um, I think that's the initial basis, and then we get the um, different dates related to that partnership, which includes the first computer. So they're creating really it's the personal computer revolution that happened at that with them at that time, in the starting in 1976 with the first Apple One computer,
Yeah.
which was rhythmic human in the hand wave spell. But it's kind of interesting because this hand, I mean, it may be jumping a bit in time. We're going from the first Apple computer here to, and we could maybe put photographs on the screen of those, but um, we can also jump to the iPhone, which, despite all the different computers in between, many cite as the actually the biggest, most revolutionary invention, creation of jobs. And that was, I think that's kind of amazing. The 29th of June 2007, the magnetic hand. I,
Yeah.
I don't think there's a better kin for the iPhone than that. And the
Yeah.
iPhone brought everything together. It was the whole computer in your hand, and the element of communication that you talk about. Crazy.
Yeah, and suddenly the phones not only work for the calls that today you can use them for everything, I think, and how this evolutionate with the years. And well, he could saw that potential on this little machine that we today it's really common for us. But imagine on that time that phones only was for do calls and voice calls, and well, today we have everything there. So he was really
Well,
a visionary in that
yeah.
sense.
And the when the iPhone came out, you did have the BlackBerry before then, and the BlackBerry had buttons on it, and that was the big game changer. And it's interesting to look at the story of how that came about, how he um, how the design team worked, and how they had to get rid of the buttons, and how to actually do the touch screen
Yeah.
instead, and how they had to come up. He didn't he because Jobs didn't know anything about how to how this would work technologically. That wasn't his role at all. He just said, this is what you've got to
Yeah.
do it, you know. And
Yeah.
so another thing on that, just to add, is that, isn't it interesting how these, we have the BlackBerry phone, we have the Apple phone, the Apple computer, the Apple phone. We've had, you get the orange kind of, what is it, like communications company? What is it with fruits and the name
Yeah.
of fruits in these companies? And I just think, when you think of the Apple, actually, the initial logo was actually an image with Isaac Newton in it and with the
Wow.
apple.
Yeah.
So, and then it became this, the apple with the bite out of it. So it's also very earth, no, on the one hand, this whole
Yeah.
concept, this with the nature. And on the other hand, you also have this kind of, okay, I'm taking it a bit out there now, but I'm thinking of seeds, and how do seeds spread? They spread with the wind. So, yeah,
Yeah, of course. And
with,
also, we need to mention about his skin, like you said, his tone, because he works with the rhythmic tone, that is the one that give us order, and also it give us organization and balance. So it seems when you see the events that happen in his life, everything went on his own time, and it was really perfect. And suddenly I found that I owe my childhood movies to him, because he was part of Pixar and was part of the first animated movie, Toy Story 1. So, and that I remember that it was all a success. It was really different from the movies that we are got used to in that time. So also was visionary in that sense.
Yeah, he had it was really vast, everything the things that he created in a short time, wasn't it? I mean, you go from the personal computer, which I don't know, it depends what age, what year you were born, your experience of this revolution, but it was really something to experience. And when Apple was about breaking the mold because we had all these IBM, very serious. The computer was very serious,
Yeah,
and up until sort of Steve Jobs and Apple comes along, and this also is very much this kind of Earth wave spell, and I think the rhythmic with the balance, etc., bringing the balance in because it's about the it's not about just control, etc. We're bringing in aesthetics. We're bringing in a sort of more feminine, you might say, energies of the earth energies into to this technology, and it starts to become something also beautiful, also related with creation,
yeah,
as in creative arts. The Mac was very, very, very popular with artists and artistic people in photographers, graphic designers, etc. It was and aesthetically, his products were also so beautiful, and I think that is also related to him being in the Earth wave spell. No, maybe some other elements of the kin as well, but
yeah,
which because we have to remember the analog is the Earth as well. So we've not just got the wave spell, we've also got Earth analog. So he's got a
exactly.
very strong relationship with the Earth,
Yeah.
and
Yeah, and when we see also the historical, we see the storm that is which is his analog, and also his service on the wave spell. And well, storm is the one that revolutionates everything. So we can say that he used this at perfection with his gifts, with the technology and his vision of something that is really different from the technology that at that moment we use. So also when you talk about how beautiful uh, he tried to did the Macs, and also well later the phones, and I think about the crystal star that is in his wave spell, that is work with the beauty and the arts, but for everyone, because it's the cooperation tone in his wave spell. So
right,
it has to
right,
be
and
beautiful and useful.
well, it's funny actually because I just read today that amongst his greatest inspirations, which we'll talk briefly about, mention briefly, one of them was the Beatles, and he said the thing with the Beatles was that you had four people working in perfect in this perfect harmony as a
Yeah.
team to create something bigger than its component parts. So when you worked out the energy of the Beatles as the four of them, that was the star, wasn't it? I can't remember
Yeah,
which. Yeah,
the lunar star in the hand
the
wave
lunar
spell.
star. Yeah.
Yeah,
So also there was a couple of things that I remember you mentioned earlier when I spoke to you earlier that you wanted to bring attention to. One of them was the recurrence of the Skywalker wave spell.
yeah,
Wasn't in his events, major
yeah.
events like
And well, also, like you said, when they formed the Apple Computer Company, it was the Skywalker wave spell with the blue spectral night. We can talk about abundance. right there.
Okay. Oh my
Uh,
goodness. Abundance
yeah,
was the
and
money aspect is huge. It's
yeah,
huge.
of
You're talking
course.
really
Yeah,
big numbers with yeah, that they made. And if you looked at what if you'd bought one share in Apple back then, or if you look at how much one share grew between then and now, etc., or it's just incredible. The numbers are massive. But just
yeah,
also as we go along, Steve Wozniak was also a Skywalker wave spell, and I just think that he was so important, even though they separated afterwards. He's so important
yeah,
in having created the actual inventions
yeah,
that
yeah,
that I
yeah.
think somehow it's interesting to see his wave spell keep coming up later on.
Yes, yes, definitely. Of course. And well, also one of the dates that you noticed too was that the first Macintosh launched was on 24 January
1984
1984. And
1984, it's that date, it's that year.
yeah, it was
Yeah,
two, and the Skywalker wave spell and the self-existing warrior. And also, I don't remember the exactly date, but when we talk about Toy Story, also appears the Skywalker. It was Overtone Skywalker. So
right.
it seems like this energy had a big influence over him, and this is not a minor information. When we investigate his Chrono that we always included on our analyze, we found that his Chrono is a self-existing song that is in his same wave spell, his bird wave spell, the Earth.
In the
It's
Earth
one,
wave spell, yeah.
yeah, it's one of
Yeah.
his important energies, but also it's in this part important of his energy map. And his integrated energy, it's from the Skywalker wave spell, and it's the planetary wind. So it's again the wind, um, giving force to this concept that he develops with the communication and express himself. And in this case, with the planetary tone, it will be like do it at the perfection, right? Like
Yeah.
perfection, the way that you communicate, the tones that you use, the your physical expression, and also the communication with yourself and the spirit, because when it's about the voice of the spirit talking up through ourselves. So um, it's really amazing how these energies appear in his life. And also, you found something amazing about this planetary wind.
Oh, so his kin on his last birthday was the planetary wind. So it's as if it's like he achieved.
Yeah,
It gives that impression that he achieved his integrated energy, which is crazy again. I mean, because he did. He really did. How many other he
yeah,
created? Well, not on his own, but he was the person who somehow channeled, who had the intuition and the drive and the charisma and to pull this all off, such a visionary. And so you're talking about the personal computer, you're talking about the iPhone, you're talking about the iPod. I mean, the iBook, you talk about the iPad, and all of these ideas were really like a lot of them. People said, "Oh, that's not possible,
yeah,
not
yeah,
possible," at the time. And I always remember, I mean, I remember the resistance even to the iPad at the time that everybody was going, this will never work. Nobody wants this. And
yeah,
then you got all of the tablets trying to copy created by Android in order to copy it. It's just crazy how
Yeah,
much of a visionary he was. And so also, I don't know if we mentioned it, maybe it's because it's so obvious to us, but that the wind is also his guide. So
yeah,
that is,
yeah, it makes
another
sense. Let me say this because, as a good wind, he also had great phrases that influenced to others and uh, still having influence about people that it's inspired. Who inspiration is Steve Jobs because he's a big referent. And I took some of these phrases to bring on this podcast and connect some way to his energies in his wave spell. So I uh, I was cultivated because, for example, he said sometime that innovation distinguishes between a leader and a follower, and I feel that this phrase it has a direct connection with his Overton dragon, that is his personal force or his personal strong, and it showed how he always was starting new things and reborn some way to new inventions or ideas that he had. And well, it makes really sense for me. And also, another of his phrases was, "Your time is limited, so don't waste it living someone else's life." And I think that it's really wind, like he said, from his soul, but also it has a connection with the magnetic earth that talks about uh, be loyal to your own time, right? I don't know if you want that we talk about some of another phrase, or you can mention the last the last things that you found today.
Yeah, I'll mention these because and then we can, if we've got more time, we
Yeah,
can add some more. But okay, so it's interesting because Steve Jobs is really famous for these phrases. Okay, so it raised the question for me to ask was, who were the people who influenced Steve Jobs?
yeah.
And I just looked it up online as we do these days. Not when I was young, but now we could just search online. Okay, so and the names of the people who influenced him most came up, and the first one um, is a man called Edwin Land, okay? And he was an inventor. He was the Polaroid inventor. You can look him up for more information. And he was Rhythmic Seed. He was born in 1909. But it's interesting because he also, when you read his quotes, you actually really hear Steve Jobs, like you hear him in Steve Jobs' words as well. So he said things, for example, like don't undertake a project unless it is manifestly important and nearly impossible.
Wow.
And other things that are very similar to what Steve Jobs would say, perhaps. Um, for example, every significant invention must be startling, unexpected, and must come into a world that is not prepared for it. And this is something everybody says about Steve Jobs, that he always said, like, and what his inventions were, that he didn't go with what the public wanted. He went with something the public did not yet know that they wanted and needed. So
Yeah.
really interesting. So he was Rhythmic Seed. Now, what surprised me is most actually was that the second person on the list of who influenced him was a person called Mike Markula, who was his first angel investor, so the person to put money in, and who was also a secret mentor to Steve Jobs, I think particularly on kind of financial aspects, who was 11th of February 1942, also rhythmic seed. So his
Wow.
two top influences of Steve Jobs were both rhythmic seeds, which is really interesting considering that then he is an earth wave spell baby, you
Yeah.
know? So we've got the seeds, and then he's kind of like uh, still, sort of like the wind, the rhythmic wind. Okay,
Yeah.
so finally, something I think is another really interesting thing that I've discovered today was about his biographer, Walter Isaacson. Really interesting character, really, and well worth. I think I've only heard clips, but I'm really looking forward to reading that biography that he wrote for Steve Jobs while Steve Jobs was actually knowing that he was dying. Now, Walter Isaacson's birthday was the 20th of May, 1952. So happy birthday to Walter for 2 days ago, which was also rhythmic wind energy, which was Steve Jobs' energy. So Walter
Wow.
Isaacson this year is in Steve Jobs, well, I would say in Steve Jobs' shoes, but he's probably would be best advice take his shoes off and go for a walk without barefoot and do some
Wow.
grounding this year to channel a bit of Steve Jobs' energy. Right, okay. Tim Cook has been the Apple CEO since 2011. Okay,
Yeah.
so he took over really just after Steve Jobs passed away. And his kin, I think, is really interesting because it is magnetic Earth. So the
Wow.
person who took over after Jobs passed away is magnetic Earth. So I thought that was very interesting. And he's actually, because when we've talked about almost everybody that we've talked about, these are people who, most of whom, I think all of them have died, the people who we've discussed in our podcast, and all
Yeah.
of them are still in the news today.
Yeah.
And when you think about, for example, with Jobs, is that um, the CEO Tim Cook is about to step down, and there's a new CEO about to take over on the 1st of September this year, who's called John Ternus, and he is a rhythmic world bridger. So I think it's really interesting to look at, because we're not just looking at Steve Jobs as Steve Jobs, but it's about what he created. And this was
Yeah.
his baby. And I'm not sure, I think there's probably a lot to talk about Apple, the company, and what's, its journey since Jobs and going into the future.
Yeah. Well,
So,
these are the synchronicities that we love, and that it's really funny because we found this information when we are doing the research. So it's really interesting, and also we found these things that, like you said, Carol, they still in the news, and always something happens that brings these characters again. And well, I hope that you enjoy this information like we do, because it's really amazing and interesting see life through the Tzolkin. So
yeah, think everybody should get in touch with Karen who to find out more about their own Tzolkin. Karen is a great teacher on the subject, and I think particularly at this moment in time, and when we've had the seeds, the formation of the seed, and now almost like the planting of the seed with the earth waves. So this is a really important time for aligning your purpose with your actions and your future somehow. We just to go with also what lessons can we take? We can take so many lessons from the people that we've looked at in the podcast as we go along. And with Steve Jobs, I think this we're here to put a dent in the universe. Otherwise, why else even be here? And I think at this moment in the Tzolkin, it really feels like that time when don't think about what's been done before to what's possible. It's what appears to be impossible at the moment that we need to kind of be asking to manifest. Really, ask for let's manifest the seemingly impossible but necessary
Yeah.
changes in our lives.
Of course, of course. Okay, well, thank you for listening to us. Remember to vote for the Night Wave spell, your favorite character. And if you want to know more about your own kin, like Carol said, I will let you my WhatsApp number where you can send me a message and ask for the options that you have to activate your energy. And of course, meet us again on the next episode through their king. Bye, Carol. Bye, everyone.
Bye, Karen. Bye, everyone.